Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Planning Commission on Tuesday, July 23, 2024. This meeting is called to order. Margaret, please call the roll.
Commissioner Mercado. Commissioner Prevatelli.
Here.
Commissioner Rodby.
Here.
Commissioner Sade.
Here.
Chair Haveman.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Okay, very good. Now, to the order of the agenda, are there any commissioners that would like to request changes to the order of the agenda? No. Okay. Next, we'll move to the meeting procedures. The City of San Rafael remains committed for all to participate in our public meetings. I want to welcome all that are making the time this evening to participate. Each member of the public may provide 3 minutes for comment when the time comes. This will ensure we have an opportunity to hear from everyone. Margaret, would you please tell us how public comment will work this evening?
Certainly, Chair. This meeting is being recorded and streamed live to YouTube and through Zoom. Viewers can watch directly through Zoom using the link on the agenda or by dialing 669-444-9171 and entering the meeting ID, which is 840-9897-7308#. In order to provide oral testimony, however, speakers must be present. Displayed at the podium will be a timer to help you stay within your allotted time frame. You are invited, though not required, to introduce yourself and to say what part of San Rafael you live in, or if you live outside of San Rafael.
Okay, next on the agenda is oral communication from the public. Remarks on non-agenda items are welcome at this time and may be on anything within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. Remarks on agenda items will be heard at the time the item is discussed. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak on items not on the agenda? No, okay. I see we have one item on the consent calendar. That is the draft Planning Commission minutes of February 13, 2024. Do we have any comments from the commissioners? And if not, may I have a motion and a second?
I make the motion to approve. This is John Prevatelli.
Thank you, John.
And Commissioner Rodby, second.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, Margaret, would you please take the roll?
Commissioner Prevatelli.
Aye.
Commissioner Rodby.
Aye.
Commissioner Sade.
Aye.
Chair Haveman.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, great. We have one action item this evening. It is a modification of a previously approved project located at 1515 4th Street. Tonight, we have a request for a use permit to operate a state-licensed residential care facility for the elderly, containing 155 senior independent and assisted living units and 28 secured memory care units at 1515 4th Street. Staff, you have a presentation?
Thank you, Chair.
Or should I read the APN?
No, my name is Margaret Kavanaugh Lynch. I am planning manager here in the city of San Rafael, and I apologize. I'm recovering from bronchitis, so I'm hoping my voice lasts throughout the presentation. But I'm trying to project as well as I can. Tonight's hearing is to consider a development application to modify a previously approved project at 1515 4th Street. The entitlement before the commission this evening is a use permit to operate a state-licensed residential care facility for the elderly containing 155 senior independent and assisted living units and 28 secured memory units. To take a step back and talk about what we're going to see in tonight's presentation, I'm going to provide a brief background on the former project, since this is a modification, and then I'm going to speak about the proposed project, the discussion of the use permit and findings that were found in the staff report, a discussion overview, actually, of the commercial linkage fee. I'm going to introduce some revised conditions of approval. And let me just explain the draft resolution and conditions of approval were included in the packet for the commission this evening. Since the packet went out, there has been minor changes to 3 conditions of approval. We'll go over those. They have their own slide. I just want to explain why there's revised conditions. Discuss the CEQA determination, give an overview of the public comments, and finally a recommendation. So that's the general flow of tonight's presentation.
Margaret, before we go, can you switch to full presentation view?
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. So to provide the overview, tonight's project does consist of a use permit to operate a state licensed residential care facility for the elderly, as I said, containing 155 senior and independent and assisted living units and 28 secured memory care units. The design review of this project has been found consistent with the previous environmental design review permit for the former project. This determination was made by the director, Hinkle, across from me, pursuant to San Rafael Municipal Code 14.25160 amendments. So wanted to explain the items before us. The project site and setting. The site itself is 0.8 acres and is surrounded by Shaver Street, Forest Street, and E Street to the west, north, and east, respectively, as well as 2 commercial buildings to the south. The site currently has driveways onto both 4th Street and East Street. The site is relatively flat with a gentle downward slope towards the southwest corner of the site, and retaining walls along the southern and southwestern sides of the property cause the site to be taller and flatter than the surrounding topography. A vacant bank building is located on the project site today. In April of 2023, the Planning Commission approved an environmental design review permit for a new mixed-use building with 162 residential units, approximately 8,900 square feet of ground floor commercial space, and amenities therein. That building had a height approval of 80 feet. It had that 8,900 square feet of retail space and a gallery, and had 13 residential units designated as below market rate for very low income households. The commission's decision was appealed to City Council, and on May 8th, 2023, the City Council upheld the commissioner's decision to approve that project. Moving fast forward to March 4th, 2024, the applicant submitted a modified project, and it has been reviewed for compliance with the general plan, the downtown precise plan, the San Rafael Municipal Code, as well as been reviewed again by city departments and outside agencies. As stated earlier, the director found the proposed plans included in the March 2024 submittal were consistent with the intent of the original approval of that environmental design review of the original project. And that is through the municipal code section listed amendments. Tonight's project, again, is for that residential care for the elderly. It also includes a state density bonus as a senior housing project. This building height is unchanged from the previously approved project, a maximum of 80 feet. Parking remains subterranean, but has been reduced from 179 to 135 in keeping with the new thresholds for parking for senior housing. And the trash room that was formerly in the garage is relocated to a service area along E Street. Also, a new canopy has been added to protect the drop-off area of the main entrance of the building along 4th. The focus of tonight's hearing is the use permit itself. And the purpose of this presentation tonight really is to give an overview of the entire project for the benefit of the Planning Commission and the community, both listening in online or present in the chambers this evening. But the focus of the analysis and the findings and conditions are on the use permit. That is the entitlement, again, that's before the commission. The project requires a use permit by the commission to allow for the residential care facility, and the findings that must be met for this and almost any other use permit you will find in our municipal code is that A, it must be in accord with the general plan, the objectives of the zoning ordinance, and the purposes of the district in which the site is located. B, the proposed use, together with the conditions applicable thereto, will not be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare, or materially injurious to properties or improvements in the vicinity or the general welfare of the city. And C, it has to comply with, the use complies with each applicable provision of the zoning ordinance. So that's the legal land use frame before us this evening. I will not read all of the text on that slide, but I will highlight from your staff report, this was included in your packet, that there's a number of general plan policies that the staff could point to, but to highlight a few, this is in line with the senior and disabled care facilities policy. It's in line with the housing mix policy. It's in line with goal EDI point 6, age-friendly community enhance the quality of life for older adults in the city of San Rafael. It's also in line, okay, I'm sorry, that's redundant. And then aging, ED 6.2, aging in the community to improve opportunities for older adults to age in place and continue to live independently in their homes. And we took that to a larger definition of, and then within the community of the city of San Rafael. And this zoning district is actually the downtown precise plan, and that's what you'll see referenced in your staff report. But in the goals and objectives, we note that this is in the West End Village sub-area of the downtown precise plan, and directly is at the border of the West End Village and the downtown core. One of the items that this project does fulfill in that frame is that it creates a gateway experience. It's by its height and by its massing, its detailing, its fenestration, it does provide an announcement of a gateway or that you're entering the part of the West End Village. The zoning ordinance speaks to what is not covered in the downtown precise plan. So it becomes very granular when you get to the zoning ordinance for a downtown project. The applicant did update a number of the studies when they resubmitted this modification, including a new geotech report that came in on March 21st, which concluded that this is feasible from a geotech standpoint, which is in keeping with a section of the code that's referenced for solid geotechnical review of new projects. This project will be consistent with our light and glare performance standards. It will screen mechanical equipment. It will be compliant with our noise standards, and it will be any landscape that's proposed as part of this modification will be water efficient. Again, these are very fine grained because the larger grain is covered in the form-based code and has been found to be consistent. But I really wanted to show that how these different parts interacted with each other. Finally, when this new project was submitted to the city of San Rafael, or the modified version of it, we routed it out to all of our agencies and departments that we work with all development projects. So it was routed to Public Works, building, out to wastewater agencies. It was routed to police, fire. Basically, everyone who looks at development projects re-reviewed this project and were encouraged to supply new conditions of approval. Those conditions are included in your draft resolution, except for the 3 that we're going to discuss in a minute. The traffic mitigation fee was reworded. That's basically that there's a discussion about how one calculates this, and basically from the trip calculation, and then you multiply it by a particular applicable traffic mitigation fee for their peak trip. So this project was originally submitted in 2021. So the multiplier is from the 2021 impact fees. In this case, that's $4,246. Therefore, the total traffic mitigation fee for the project, showing its math, is $165,594. That is a slightly different discussion and fee than is in the original draft resolution conditions. For the sake of clarity and transparency, there's a strike-through version of what was there and a bold underlined version of this new language for all 3 of these fees. These fees show up as conditions 6, 7, and 53 in your list of conditions. The second change was minor wording. This project, and we're going to discuss commercial linkage fee a little bit in a second, but the commercial linkage fee, as listed there, shall be paid in full prior to either the first temporary certificate of occupancy or actual certificate of occupancy for the project. And we show our calculations. Again, we show our work, which is mandated by state law. And then finally, prior to the issuance of the first building permit, the project shall be modified to provide an additional 172 bicycle parking spaces to the satisfaction of the Community and Economic Development Director. Our form-based code, and this is why I brought tea. I'm sorry. Our form-based code is very pedestrian and bicycle supportive, as it should be. It actually has a very strong discussion of in the parking sections for these particular zoning districts of the precise plan. By bedroom, how many bicycles we need to see. Staff dutifully did the calculations and included those in as a condition of approval because the application itself had about 7, I think. There is going to be a conversation between the director and the development team about how to do this in a way that they're located maybe in the front of the parking stalls, or maybe some will be, put in a bike corral in some of these surplus parking spaces that are in the subterranean parking. There's also a discussion that will probably take place about the reasonableness of this amount of parking for this particular use. We didn't have a way to reflect that I qualify as a senior and I have a bicycle, but there is a realistic expectation here at some point. That number of bicycle parking spaces might be superfluous. So we wanted to leave a discussion open to have a good amount of bike parking, but maybe not the full 172, or find a way to do that that's not going to take over the site plan. So that's the reason for that change. Back to the commercial linkage fee for a second. The project will employ staff across a variety of functions, including administration, marketing, caregiving, and food service. As a new commercial development, and let me just explain that for a second. This is, as I keep saying, the use permit is for a facility. I keep using the word facility. That is a commercial use. This project is governed by lots of different laws. In our zoning, in our code, it's a facility for seniors. In the state, it's a senior housing project. So you'll see that go back and forth. It's both, but for the sake of the commercial linkage fee, it's a facility. So with staff. Okay, so that's it. I wanted to acknowledge that we talk about it in different ways, but it depends on which code we're referencing. And again, as Planning Commission and staff of the Planning Commission, we are governed by the general plan, the zoning code, the downtown precise plan, and all the state housing laws that pertain to this project. So that's why you see that definition move a bit. Staff working with a consultant team, economic team, economic development team that runs this specific kind of data. Looked at the staffing plan that showed the anticipated employee density for the proposed project, as well as Marin County wage data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Using the data provided, staff applied the methodology used in the city's most recently adopted fee study to establish a maximum justifiable fee for the project at $140 per square foot. This represents the revenue required to completely close the gap between what housing costs to build and what employees can afford. To determine the final fee rate, the consultants and staff factored in a financial feasibility expectation and existing fees in other jurisdictions. That is the condition that we just referenced above. That's the linkage condition, and that's how we got to the 2.591 million, et cetera.
So for clarity,
Please.
the commercial linkage fee is applied at $13.33 per square foot. That's actually the maximum rate that was approved by our linkage fee. So we had to work through that to actually understand what but that's where it landed. So, and this is just a reflection that this particular use was not listed in our commercial linkage fee. So there is some director provision and city provision, to find what's the closest thing to it. So we actually brought in a third-party consultant to kind of help us, who also did the commercial linkage fee study countywide. So, and that's where we're able to kind of land at that point. So, and this is a reflection of, it is considered a commercial use. So that's why the commercial linkage fee is applied versus inclusionary housing. So.
Thank you. To wrap up the presentation, staff recommends this project be found categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Section 15332 infill development projects. This was reflected in a memo that was included as Exhibit 4 in your packet. As I think I mentioned before, as part of the submittal of the modified application, the development team provided a number of new studies that were used to re-examine this CEQA determination. So this is based on fresh data on traffic, air quality, noise, traffic and noise, specifically air quality, had a different, we basically the project isn't big enough to hit the air quality discussions, but that's all detailed in the Exhibit 4. Finally, notice of this hearing was conducted in accordance with the Chapter 14.29 of our municipal code, and otherwise known as our zoning ordinance. It was mailed to all property owners and occupants within a 300-foot radius and all other interested parties 15 days prior to the date of this hearing. Public notice was also posted on the frontage of the subject site, also 15 days. Staff received numerous comments from the project. Those were included in Exhibit 7, and we received a number of comments after the packet went out. That is the second attachment before the commission this evening on the dais. It's also available for members of the public over next to Director Hinkle, along with a revised draft resolution. It's also on the website for this project on the Planning Commission page so that people can see them in those number of places. Major themes contained within these comments include the building height, the scale of the building in relationship to the neighborhood, the impacts caused by traffic, impacts to the on-street parking spaces, shadow impacts on the existing buildings, and concerns about the need and desirability of senior housing development in this location. There were one or two comments in favor of the project and of notice. We have a letter from the Chamber of Commerce endorsing this project. I believe that is one of the things that's in paper in front of you. To conclude, the Planning Commission has the following options, and this is from your staff report. You can approve the project as presented, subject to the conditions of approval as revised, which is a staff recommendation. You can approve the project with certain modifications and changes that you determine to be needed as part of this hearing, and we can revise the draft conditions to reflect that. You can continue the project and request staff to bring back specific information that the Planning Commission needs in order to take an action. Or you may deny the project and direct staff to return with a revised resolution for denial. This concludes the staff report, and I'm able to take clarifying questions if that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you very much, Margaret, and thank you for pushing on despite your voice. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for staff?
Yes, I have one. On the overall reduction in the vehicle trips from the approved project to the proposed project, if I'm reading it right, there is an actual reduction over what was approved?
That's correct. I believe the current number of parking spaces is 135. Actually, let me share that slide again because I think it'll show it better than what I can state. The beginning and then. The CEQA analysis in Exhibit 4 notes that there is 53 new peak trips. So that's in terms of vehicles. That's the analysis, but I want to, how to say this better. The calculation of the original transportation project, the original transportation study had a higher number. This is a lower number based on the trips generated. And then, this actually reflects the fee generated off the trips, the trips generated. It doesn't actually reflect the delta and decrease. But yes, by nature and by the number of parking spaces provided, there is less vehicles being generated by this project than the approved project that came before you last year.
Thank you. And then final question, what about electric charging stations in the parking garage? Is that a requirement?
Yes, this project will be required to meet the current building code, which does require electric charging stations to be either wired or absolutely included. I'd have to check with the building official, but there is a requirement to have those in place.
Okay, thank you.
Do we know what the required number of electric spots is going to be?
I am sorry, I do not.
Okay. Commissioner Prevatelli?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. My first question is about waivers. And I know that this is a complex topic and I don't expect you to explain all the law behind it. But I know in reading the packet and from actually the previous proposal that was approved that there were some waivers that allowed the building to essentially not have to comply with some of the vertical setbacks and also the outdoor public space that we intended to be built in new projects per the precise plan. Just wanted to find out if you could confirm that and just briefly explain why those waivers are required.
Yes, and I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry too for asking the question.
And I acknowledge that the pain is on your side. It doesn't hurt, but it does
Okay,
hurt to
that
listen.
makes me
So I
feel a little
apologize for that. So senior housing, density bonus for senior housing, which is the project that we analyzed when we, as part of the director's determination, and that's in the exhibit that's in your packet. They get a 20% density bonus. And they also have the ability to ask for unlimited number of waivers to accommodate what they are allowed to have under that density bonus.
This is per state law?
Yes, this is per state law. Yes, sir. So this project has a density bonus for height. They have a density bonus for setbacks. They have a density bonus for, I believe that was and it's in the draft resolution. I could pull it up, but I believe it's front and street side and rear. They have density bonus waivers for step backs, which is the setbacks are at property lines. Step backs happen higher up. We would ask the buildings to do that, but by state law, the city generally has to grant these without exception. That there is a way to health, safety, and welfare. There is some kind of discussion, and we do have one of the city attorney joining us as a panelist remotely today. So if we really wanted to discuss that, that's available to us. But generally, for the sake of this conversation, the city has to grant the waivers unless there's a very, very, very compelling small legal discussion on how that would not be the case. On the civic space, this project was granted a waiver to locate it inside the building. The downtown precise plan requires that civic space be located in the public realm. It's usually a plaza or some other public space. And it gives by example what that means in our downtown precise plan. In this case, the development team wanted to provide space that the members of the community could use, but they, due to this particular use of a senior housing building, they wanted site control so that they have some say about when people come and go that aren't coming to visit residents. So you'll see in the floor plan that there is a community room that'll be made available to the public. The terms and conditions are stipulated in the conditions of approval, but there is a waiver that it's brought inside. So that's the general layout of how the waivers informed this project.
Okay. And just one more question. So last time we saw this project in its previous form, there was a lot of discussion about the traffic on Shaver Street. And I was wondering if you could elaborate on, you already talked about the reduction in the number of trips, but I understand that there's also a change to the position where garbage will be collected. I presume that also affects traffic on Shaver Street. Is that fair assumption?
It definitely will have lessen the impact by having the loading for the loading dock for this site be moved to this other side of the building. I know that the development team is ready to give an overview of the project as well, and I bet they'll be able to discuss that. I do want to say, because I have it ready, The I was just looking to see if I could say it quickly, but I think I'll stop at this point. I do have included in the CEQA infill exemption memo, we do talk about traffic and how basically the VMT, which is vehicle miles traveled, which is the CEQA part of traffic that we can talk about, right? Several years ago now, the state of California moved away from level of service and only speaks about VMT. And we talk about the VMT discussion on this project. But the summary statement on level of service, which we do still track here in the city of San Rafael, is that this intersections that were mentioned in the original traffic study, which would include 4th and E Street and 4th Street and Shaver Street, today operate at level of service B and A respectively. And when this project is built, that level of service is expected to remain. So this is a less overall impact, and the level of service, which is what our community feels at intersections, will also be unchanged in terms of how that's measured, level of service B and level of service A. So I just wanted to add a little bit more to the traffic discussion. I'll let the development team talk about how the movement of the loading zone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. I just have a couple of questions. One is regarding we're here to decide on the conditional use permit. Does every project of this type require a conditional use permit, or I guess where are we being asked?
Yeah, it's the use table for the downtown precise plan requires a conditional use permit for the districts in which this project's actually in, depending how you look at it, 2 to 3 districts. And that was in your staff report, but it's at least 2 of those require a use permit. There was a decision point where staff could have, I believe, made this a zoning administrator discussion, but this project had such importance in the community, was so involved in the last discussion, the director elevated this conversation to the planning commission so that the whole topic could be discussed before you tonight.
And then can you explain the commercial versus housing? I get it from like a bureaucratic perspective, but in terms of like, I'm assuming we're getting RENA counts for this?
Yes. So
Yeah. And so if it's market rate housing, but it's also senior housing, like
yes.
how does that become, can you just explain the overlap of commercial and housing? A little more
I
clearly?
can start, and if that's not a complete answer, I know that our city attorney is available. So in the state of California today, we have a number of governing sets of regulation. So for the state of California, for the sake of the density bonus, this is a senior housing project. There are no below market rate units in this. There is such a thing as below market rate senior housing. This is not that project. But there is a need identified by the state of California. It is part of the housing crisis. And quite honestly, we were looking at the census for the city of San Rafael, and over half of our population is over 62. So there's a need in the city of San Rafael for options for senior housing. So the same state set of regulations that refer to these as dwelling units for the independent and the assisted living and the memory care, we get RENA credit for those as, I believe, above moderate. I really haven't dug into where this lands, but it has to, almost by definition, since there's no below market. This does count towards new housing units. This will appear in our report to the state on how we're doing. It does provide an option to many seniors living in San Rafael and in our immediate area about maybe downsizing, maybe selling their single family detached home and moving into this new use. But when you go to the downtown precise plan, this is considered a facility for the whole title was in the thing, but it's a care facility with a continuum of care from independent units, which is REIT apartment, to assisted care, apartment with a kitchen, with services augmenting, and memory care, which is for folks with challenges that sometimes happen to folks as they age. Those don't have a kitchen. So
Margaret, if I may,
Sure.
Might be best to have our city attorney, Neera Doherty, answer this specific question. There is some really specific key items on that. So Neera is one of our panelists, and I think she's able to unmute herself and speak to this specific question.
Thank you, Mr. Hinckley, and apologies for some reason my camera doesn't work, but if there's any problem hearing me, please let me know. So under, as Margaret stated, under state law, the applicant is not required to provide affordable units in order to invoke state density bonus law. However, because the project is a city project, the applicant still has to meet the city's affordable housing requirements. And the city has essentially two buckets of affordable housing. One is its inclusionary affordable housing, which applies to residential projects, and one is its commercial linkage fee requirement that applies to commercial projects. I think that your question is spot on. The city does get RHNA credit for it. It is not clear in state law or any other law that this project is a commercial project that would necessarily trigger a commercial linkage fee. However, there is a large school of thought that the state regulates and occupies the area of residential care facilities. And because of that, the city's inclusionary or residential affordable housing requirements wouldn't apply, and the city's commercial linkage requirements would apply. The commercial linkage requirements require the provision of a fee in order to offset the addition of employees that are generated from a project. And so staff determined, as the presentation previously discussed, staff determined which commercial linkage fee rate was appropriate based on this particular use. So I think that's a very good question. Hopefully that was a clear enough answer, and let me know if you have any follow-up questions.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Any other questions from the commission? Okay, and I have no questions for staff. So then we'll move on to a presentation from the applicant. Let me invite you to come up and make the presentation.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for your time this evening, and thank you, staff, for your organizing the hearing tonight. Margaret, thank you for enduring your voice, and Micah, thank you for your help as well. My name is Tom Monahan. I'm president of Monahan Pacific. As a San Rafael resident for 40 years, we've been investing and developing in San Rafael for 4 decades. A recent project we completed is the AC Hotel, which has been open for about a year now with great success. We're excited to bring our next project to provide badly needed senior housing to 4th Street in downtown. As you know, the hearing tonight is for a use permit. Senior housing is an allowed use within this zone, which is a T4 MS zone. And just like a bar, restaurant, nail salon, or a bank, a use permit is routinely granted with operating conditions for a use permit, which is the resolution that's before you tonight. As staff mentioned, and I'll just reiterate, the General Plan 2040 outlines and encourages senior housing in downtown in a mixed-use district like 4th Street. And the staff mentioned a number of policies that this project complies with, which I'll just mention includes building more senior housing for disabled care facilities, providing a diverse mix of housing, building age-friendly communities for older adults, and providing facilities to age in place within the community. The project, as you've heard, also is consistent with all the San Rafael zoning ordinances. And this use permit simply pivots the approved project to an older demographic of resident. And I guess, let's face it, we're all getting a bit older. So it's a much needed project. We brought on Belmont Village, an established 5-star operator, and Graystar for their track record and experience with senior housing to help execute the project. So I would like to introduce Andy Gerber with Belmont Village to discuss how the operations of the property will work. Thank you for your time this evening. We appreciate your support and approval for this use permit later this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, commissioners and staff, for the opportunity to be here tonight. As Tom said, my name's Andy Gerber. I'm with Belmont Village Senior Living, and along with our partners at Graystar, we'll be the end user of the use permit that is before you for approval tonight. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why we're proposing to pivot the use to senior housing. Margaret, can you go to the next slide, please? What it really boils down to is that.
Excuse me, Margaret, can you expand the presentation, please? Is that possible or not?
Unfortunately, I'm not seeing the option on the screen tonight. I'm sorry. I think it's,
Okay.
unfortunately, I cannot.
If that's what we have, that's terrific. Thank you.
All right. So really the reason boils down to demographics. As I think probably most of you are aware, the baby boomers are starting to retire. And over the next 20 years, the U.S. is anticipating a huge surge of its population that are over the age of 65. Right here in San Rafael, and including the areas surrounding San Rafael and urbanized Marin County, there are approximately 27,000 residents who are age 75 and over. And I bring up 75 because that typically is the front end of where our typical customer comes from. 65 really isn't considered old anymore. Over the next few years, we anticipate that population to grow by approximately 4,000 senior citizens over the age of 75. Contrast that with, in the same area, there are fewer than 2,000 licensed residential care units to serve that population, and not a whole lot coming on in the pipeline. So what we're going to see is, an increasing number of residents here in San Rafael and the surrounding area that won't have available to them the care that they need. Many of them are living in single-family homes that they may have outgrown and may be better served to house other members of the community. So there is a great need for it. Can you go to the next slide? So what we at Belmont Village do, as Margaret mentioned, is we're a developer, owner, and operator of licensed residential care facilities, including independent living, assisted living, and memory care. And we provide them throughout the nation, but about half of our 33 operating communities are in California, including 4 right here in the Bay Area, in Los Gatos, in San Jose, in Sunnyvale, and in Albany. And we have a 5th community under construction currently in San Ramon, which will be opening early next year. And we're hopeful that this will be the 6th one. And to talk a little bit about the proposed changes is my partner, Troy Vernon with Graystar.
Thank you, Andy. Good evening, Commission, staff. To hunch a bit. So Troy Vernon with Graystar. We have the privilege of being a leader in the building construction. There we go. Thank you. Operation and development and construction of rental housing nationally and in the Bay Area. We've had the privilege of delivering a few projects locally and a few thousand units. And we're very thankful to be before you tonight with Belmont Village in what would be our 4th Belmont Village delivery in California. Slide, please. I'm going to hit the highlights of we think some of the benefits of this change in use to senior housing. As discussed earlier, the traffic generated by this type of use is lower than what was already contemplated, and with that comes with a reduction in parking that needs to be provided. We've discussed trash that can be added, a trash loading area on East Street, as well as a loading space on 4th Street, which we'll speak to. We're able to provide the civic space in a dedicated way. And then lastly, with the reduction in traffic, there does come a small reduction in the noise impact of the project as well. Slide, please. So I'll speak briefly about the specifics of the change. The building, as you can see, is effectively the same size. It is the same height. It is the same number of stories. Where you start to see changes is what happens behind the windows, behind the walls. And for this change in use, the average unit size gets smaller. There's less space needed for this user. And with that, with the same building, there's a slight uptick in the unit count. So you'll see before you 162 units becoming 183. We've discussed the continuum of care, independent living, assisted living, and memory care. So there's detail of that spread, and we're happy to talk more about those uses. We've note the, oh, I'm sorry, a few more moments there. You note the decrease in parking provided. I'd like to touch briefly on the building typology. Typically, a mid-rise market rate housing project is made out of wood, which is more economical. Belmont makes the investment to build these out of concrete, and that's just a safer structure. I'd lastly talk about the retail square footage, which has been mentioned. We are not able to provide that space. We need the space on 4th Street to provide the range of services and amenities for our residents. We'll speak more about that in a moment. And then lastly, as been discussed, as part of this change in use, we are able to dedicate as part of the entitlement access to the civic space. And we'll talk more about that briefly. I just end by noting that the current project used a state density bonus concession to alleviate that requirement. We're providing the space. Slide, please. Speaking about traffic for a moment, we continued to use the services of AMG. They were the traffic engineer for the original entitlement effort. They were also party to the appeal and discussion of safety on Shaver Street. They're here with us this evening. They studied the change in use, and they found that a daily trip reduction of about 50%, and then a peak AM reduction further there of 70%. So sharing some statistics about the change in use and the lessening demand for cars. Slide, please. Want to speak briefly to the site plan. You're familiar with the site. It's 4th Street spanning from Shaver to East Street. Shaver Street remains effectively the same. There are 2 drive aisles serving 2 independent garages. Now, what's happened is the garages on either side, both of them have been reduced to create less demand on those openings. On 4th Street, we've been able to add a carve-out on the sidewalk there, which can provide room for passenger drop-off and loading, but also deliveries. And so we believe this will alleviate some of the concerns of double parking, traffic congestion. We've created a space for that to occur. And then lastly, as mentioned, on East Street, we've added a purpose-built loading dock, move-ins, big trucks, but also predominantly trash, getting that away from Shaver Street, putting it in a purposeful place along East Street. Slide, please. Talk briefly about 4th Street activation. The current project has 9,000 square feet of retail that will be delivered when and frankly if retail comes online in these places. Our project will activate this with the uses of our residents, so it'll be active day 1. These will be finished, beautiful spaces all along 4th Street. The majority of the use will be a dining facility. Our residents will have meals there 3 times a day. They will be waited on. It looks like a restaurant from the outside. It is private to the residents and their guests, but when you walk through the area, it'll feel like an active restaurant year-round. Moving through 4th Street to their side, it's a space designated as Town Hall. That's a feature of these communities. It's a space purpose-built for folks to gather. That's the space that we're going to make available as part of the civic space. There'll be a little bit of access control to say, I'd like to use a space on this date, but then it'll be available to the community. And it's hard to see, but the image on the top left is an example of another Belmont project, this town hall space being used. It has the facilities to facilitate gatherings, could be perfect for a Girl Scout troop or a Rotary Club, etc. Moving on, please. Lastly, I'll touch briefly the change of subterranean. So the image on the left is the current garage. The image on the right is the revised. It's hard to read, but the point is there is less stalls in there. There's less cars going through that opening on Shaver. And then in one click further, please. Same is happening on the lower garage. The main change here, which has been spoken to a few times, is currently the trash gathers in level 2, is taken out to Shaver Street, is staged to be picked up. We have added a loading dock, which eliminates the need for any of that to happen on Shaver Street. So in addition to being reduced, less cars, there's also less activity by the relocation of those functions. Next slide, please. So that is our presentation. We appreciate your consideration and time. Look forward to answering questions, and we ask for your support of the resolution before you today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Tom, Andy, and Troy. At this point, I'll turn to the other commissioners, see if they have questions for the applicant. But before I do, I'd just like the record to show that all 4 of us did meet independently with the applicant. Okay, any of the commissioners have questions for the applicant?
Just a quick one. How many employees do you see having, and is parking provided for them in the parking project?
I'll answer your questions in reverse order. Yes, parking is provided for employees, and I would anticipate that the bulk of the parking use is going to be our employees. So we are a 24-hour facility. So on our main shift, the quote unquote day shift, we anticipate having approximately 55 employees on site. During the, I guess you'd call it the afternoon or the evening shift, a slightly smaller crew, probably of 40 to 45 employees. And then the overnight shift is more of a skeleton crew of between 8 and 10 employees.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then on the town hall, is it just a room, or are there going to be amenities provided, like screens and?
No, typically they're outfitted with audio visual. The town hall, just so you know, is a feature of every Belmont Village community, and it is, it's a somewhat vanilla, flexible, multi-use space. A lot of the spaces in our projects are very programmed. This is one opportunity to have things that may not be regularly occurring, or may not need a space dedicated to them every day, but the space is there for sort of any flexible use.
Thank you.
Commissioner Suddy, do you have any questions? No? Commissioner Prevatelli?
Yeah, I've got a few questions. The first one is about the impact of interest rates in your decision to change the use. That was something that I learned about in my meeting with the developer. Could you just describe that, go into a little bit more detail about that?
Yes, that's a good question. And once the original project was approved, which took quite some time, interest rates, as you know, kind of spiked up considerably. And so that project started to become difficult for underwriting. And so we searched around for alternative uses, of which senior housing has a different financial dynamic in that it's both residential and care provided. And so it's a different economic model. And so that allowed us to keep the project the size that it is, the shape that it is, and to proceed with that project. So that's our preferred alternative. The other direction is to try to make the project bigger and to change the economics that way. And we felt that this was the best solution to bring in a much needed senior housing to the community.
Okay. So in other words, the previous project just didn't pencil as well as this project?
Not at this time.
Yeah.
I think the difference is that this project is something that can be built immediately and put into service right away.
Okay. I have two other questions. I don't know if this would be for you or not, but probably not actually. So apologies. The two other questions, I'll just ask them both at the same time. One is, could we hear a bit more about the outdoor space that's going to be available to the residents? And also, could you talk about how the public space would be essentially like scheduled by the public and reserved, I suppose?
So as far as the outdoor space goes, as you know, it's pretty small, tight site.
Yeah.
But we do have a ground level activity courtyard, and a lot of as many of the ground floor indoor spaces are usually oriented towards the outdoor courtyard as well. But we're anticipating having a small pool, some outdoor dining areas and seating areas for our residents. As well, up on the uppermost floor on, I guess, the southwest corner of the building facing Mount Tam, where the previous project had an amenity deck up there, we will also have a deck up there. As far as outdoor space. Now, as far as how town hall is used, we don't have a top-down corporate policy for that. That is generally handled at the local level, and it takes a variety of forms depending on what the sort of neighborhood demand is. So just to give you some examples, our community down in Los Gatos was built on the property of a local school district. School district's administration office was next door. They didn't have a great place to do teacher development. Basically, they were in a windowless conference room for many years. So what we agreed to do is make town hall available to the school district to do teacher training on an ongoing basis. That's one example. Some others in Albany, we host a local Rotary Club there with regularity. Down in Southern California, we have a community in Los Angeles in Westwood, and one of the local community planning groups used to hold their monthly sessions at our town hall. There's a variety of other activities that may take place again on a non-ongoing basis, but those are some examples. And what we would do is we would set it up so that groups that want to use it could contact the executive director or the marketing director, whoever the appropriate person is on staff there, to arrange times to use it. Now, obviously, our residents use it as well, so it's not going to be available all the time, every time they want to use. But there's a lot of times, frequently, particularly after hours, where activities are not scheduled in there. And so it's a great synergy for, say, a community group where the people may be working during the day, but their activities take place in the evening when our residents tend to not be using town hall.
Okay. And just one follow-up question. In those cases, how is that obligation papered or contracted between you and the community?
Margaret, do you want to answer that? Because I believe there was some specifics in the conditions of approval about that.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
Margaret, I'll take this.
Yeah.
Yes.
One thing I want to note, Director Hinkle, is we did discuss this and there are emails going back and forth, but I realize in the drafting of the draft conditions, we did not get that final language into the draft conditions. So I will, the general idea was the civic space will be made available to the members of the public by contacting the property manager. Expectations would be that this space would be available by appointment 7 days a week, particularly in the afternoons and evenings. I think that reflects the email exchange that we had. Is that accurate?
Yes, I think that's very much in the spirit of it. Like we said, some of it, a lot of times it grows organically. It's really about who in the community wants to use it. What sort of purpose do they have there? What time of day do they meet? So we try not to be too prescriptive about it, but try to be as accommodating as possible to the community's needs.
So through the chair, Margaret was so good about this. She actually did include it in the revised packet. There is a condition number 14, civic space.
Okay, great.
It says the project shall provide a publicly accessible civic space pursuant to the downtown precise plan, which shall, in the location shown on the floor plans, prior to the issuance of the first building permit for the project, the applicant shall negotiate and record a civic space use agreement in form approved but executed by the city manager, which shall govern in its perpetuity public access to the civic space within the project. Basically, the civic space use agreement shall be available 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week prior to the approval of the property management company. So we try to actually set the limits, or at least the ground floor, like the minimum you shall provide this public access. This is a newer provision within our downtown precise plan. And just given the the struggle of using the land for actually like park space, we really have to find some tools and actually how to make this actual implementable. So this is the approach that we've took on this one. I do anticipate us, when we look at larger projects come down the road for the downtown, that we're going to have to look at civic space provisions and how to actually make those available and workable. This was a struggle for this project to actually find that. If you can recall, the prior project actually asked for, was it a concession or I can't remember, a concession for that particular use. But that's how this one's provided in this case. But we do have a specific condition getting at that, but then also recorded against the property. So regardless of operator, it's still within there for the public. So.
Thank you, Micah. John? Okay. Thank you, John. I have just a couple of questions. One, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to, but I just couldn't find it concretely in the documents. The loading dock has a garage door, correct?
It does.
It does. Okay. The image of a loading dock. And anyway, and second, with regard to public space, there's the town hall room, and I got one question surrounding that. You have a kitchen, If a group came in and they wanted to provide breakfast to their meetings, would your kitchen be involved in that, or would they have to bring food in from somebody else, or would they be able to?
I think as a matter of principle for us, we would have no issue with providing it. We have to be very, very careful that we don't run afoul of the local health department
Sure.
in terms of serving food to the public, because our kitchen facilities and our dining facilities are intended to be for residents and sometimes their guests. So we are not a restaurant or a food service purveyor. But that said, I believe we have probably provided refreshments to some of those events in the past. But again, we just have to make sure that we stay within the lines as far as the local health department.
And I'm sorry if you answered this. Can groups bring in food from an alternative source?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why there would be a restriction on that, at least none that I can think of.
Okay. And regarding public access, I left our conversation with the impression that the rooftop space would also be accessible to the public. Is that correct?
That's not.
That's not
That is
correct.
for the residents. Yeah.
Okay.
And their guests, but we wouldn't necessarily be able to have outside groups up there.
Okay. And my final question has to do with the arrival and departure of employees. Are there 3 solid shifts, 8 to 4, 4 to midnight, midnight to 8? Do the departures and arrivals all happen at the same time, or are they kind of spaced out a little bit?
There are 3 distinct shifts because it's a 24-hour-a-day facility. And I will say that we're not necessarily unique in this regard, but it's very common for senior living facilities. I'm not exactly sure why, but to schedule shift changes off of the peak hour.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than having our employee shift change happen at, say, 7:30 or 8 in the morning, right during rush hour, and then again at 3:34 in the afternoon, right during rush hour, instead, our morning shift change is typically around 6:30 in the morning. So to try to avoid the peak, and consequently, the afternoon shift change is closer to about 2:30 in the afternoon. So again, to try to avoid the afternoon peak.
Better for employees and the local.
Better for
as well.
everybody, we
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, I have no other questions, and unless there are any additional questions from the commissioners, then I will go ahead and open the public hearing. I would invite anybody who has comments to make to come to the podium. If you so wish, tell us your name and where you live in San Rafael. That's
Evening. My name is Brad Sears. I'm going to be looking directly at this thing. I have a narrow legal question. I ran it through an AI program. I'm not a professional at this, but I didn't see a breakdown of the units according to the level of care. There are 3 levels of care, which you've gone over. What stood out was the number of units being used to qualify for bonuses. In the mailer, I saw 152. In the presentation, I saw 183. I assume the applicant is only counting units that have full kitchens to qualify for bonuses. As you know, no kitchen, no unit, no count, no bonus, no RENA. This is about right sizing and getting it right. There are liability issues if the numbers don't match the law. I'm not talking about a wet bar, but a sink, fridge, oven, something that could be rented as an apartment. You can't equip an assisted living space to someone that could get hurt or have a medical condition. Memory care, of course, doesn't count as a unit. This is basically a concierge hotel and a hospital. Back to the formula, please clarify the breakdown according to the levels of care and be sure what is counted qualifies for bonuses because it's important for you as commissioners since this is a decision that will be scrutinized. I have some other questions here. Is 80 feet at the corner of 4th and E, calling it a gateway village is completely, a gateway is delusional, inconsistent with the neighborhood. And untruthful, 172 parking spaces is ludicrous. Bike parking spaces. Let's see. Does the garage area remain this? No, you already covered that. Okay, is there a design professional on the board? Seems that your board is a combined design review board. And so having 4 people on probably the most consequential project in the history of San Rafael. This thing is a hulking box, and it's really an embarrassment, and I'm sorry to be a neighbor. We can talk about senior housing, 20%, RENA, density, height, setbacks, attorney, let's see, what are the, okay, so what did the applicant trade for no real legitimate public space? Back in the day, they were talking about putting money into buying park space elsewhere. It seems like this is a big time fudge. And since the Chamber of Commerce was the only one to endorse this, it's been my experience that they would endorse absolutely anything.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Devin Kessler. I'm with Exceptional Senior Placement. I'm here to support the applicant and also just support in general development of senior housing. I serve it, well, our company services the entire 9-county Bay Area. I specialize in San Francisco and Marin, and we are in dire need of more units to serve our seniors. Belmont Village, we have worked with in all of their Bay Area communities. We find them to be exemplary in the service that they provide the seniors. They are always very highly engaged with the communities that they work in, and we think of them as one of the finest of the operators that we work with. So we think that having them operate a community in San Rafael would be fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Peggy McQuaid, and I've come across the bridge from Albany. And we do have Belmont Village in Albany. It's been there about 7 years now. And I don't want to talk to you about the size of the building or how it fits arena or anything else. I just want to talk to you about how they're a valued member of our community. You talked about opening it up to community groups, opening their facility. I'm a member of the Albany Rotary Club. We had met there for years. Get wonderful food. The Chamber of Commerce has their Best of Albany celebrations there. They used both the inside and the outside garden areas. I was lucky enough to be mayor for several years. We had several mayor's conferences there. I held resiliency community business meetings. We held our United Against Hate events there. I saw your signs in the window. I was so happy to see them in other languages. They're really a part of our business community, and they're a very, very important part. I see the staff at our mixers, at all of our events. The one thing nobody's mentioned is they make very generous financial contributions to our local nonprofits. I serve on the Education Foundation, contact them, we get a donation. The Albany Film Fest, same thing. Albany Rotary, they're very generous to the community. They're really a part of our community. They're right on the border of Berkeley. They are a gateway to our community. They have wonderful public art right in front. Their buildings their building is very well maintained. It's been there 7 years. It's beautiful. It's been beautiful from day one. I see their staff with their residents in the community. There's a local shopping center right there. I see them out getting coffee, going to a hamburger place. They partner with our police department on presentations for safety for seniors, inviting the community in to hear that. They've held election forums in their big room. So they really bring a lot to the community, and they really welcome the community into their space, and they also come to the rest of the community. So I really hope that you consider this. It's a good thing for your city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Veronica Sibley. I'm with Senior Alternatives. We're a care management and home care agency that supports seniors, and I'm a Marin County resident. Today, I'm here in support of Belmont Village. As a senior living professional with 24 years of experience, I can attest to the benefits a new senior living community brings to an area. I've been part of startup teams that have opened 6 communities here in the Bay Area. And firstly, the demand of quality senior living options is continually increasing as the population ages. Adding another community can help meet this growing need, especially for baby boomers. Secondly, a new community helps diversify offerings in the area, catering to various preferences. Increased competition can drive overall improvements in services and amenities for seniors, and it benefits all. Lastly, Belmont Village stands out as a premier choice in senior housing for many reasons rather. Renowned for exceptional care and state-of-the-art buildings, Belmont Village prioritizes the well-being and comfort of residents. The community offers a comprehensive range of services, including independent living, assisted living, and memory support. Belmont Village's commitment to innovation ensures that they remain at the forefront of senior living solutions, continuously integrating new technologies and practices to improve the resident care and experience. I have been a community partner of Belmont Village for years now and can vouch for their positive impact and what they bring to a community. So that's all I wanted to share today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Martha Walters. I've lived in San Rafael, Marin, for about 30 years, and I'm not part of the Belmont Village. I have no relationship with them. I'm not trying to promote anything. I've been an environmental scientist for a long time. I understand the environmental review process, and I just think that before you decide about issuing this conditional use permit, there needs to be a pause. There are only 30 people here tonight. We're in the middle of summer. Very few people even know about this hearing. I just happened to know about it because a friend was walking along 4th Street and saw the sign. So I'm like, well, that's not good. And I contacted Margaret and I asked her if I could get a copy of the CADX determination. Never heard back from her. So I just think there are a lot of issues, like the CADX determination is based upon fresh data. What's that data? I don't know. What are the data points? What does that say to us? You know, what's the information, independent information? And one of the things from the original application, which is very troublesome, was the traffic report. It, didn't even cover, the basic parameters of a really good traffic assessment. And so I don't know what that means when fresh data in terms of traffic reports or impact upon the businesses, the information isn't there. And I have to agree, Brad, I don't know him, but the 172 bicycle spaces, and, they need to know more about the EV charging stations. There just seems to be a lot of missing data for you guys to go ahead and, provide a conditional use permit. I would really would say that these folks, Belmont Village, Gray Star, Tom, just go back and get a lot more information so the public feels comfortable. We don't know how long that construction process is going on. I don't know if you all live in San Rafael, but anybody knows the construction at Mission and Lincoln is a nightmare. And there have been several accidents there. What kind of, parameters are they going to provide for safety in that area? There are just a lot of things that are missing for, I think, that a permit should be issued. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi there. My name is Lisa Whitescarver, and my company name is North River. And we're the owner of a building at 4th Street and C. And we have about 35 small businesses located there. And the reason that our 35 businesses are there is because of 4th Street, because of the vibrancy of 4th Street. And our small businesses are concerned. We've all seen 4th Street has lost some of the buzz in recent years. And so it is just a no-brainer for us that we need to build as much housing as we can in the downtown area as quickly as possible. And so if this project is more viable because of the interest rate environment, that means a lot to us. We also think that the nature of the occupancy of seniors creates a more multi-generational vibe, if you will, to San Rafael, that people who are older might be more inclined to sit in cafes, to take a walk, to use the awesome bus system that runs up and down 4th Street, more so than 30-somethings and 40-somethings who really aren't around between 9 and 5. So our focus is on 4th Street and its vibrancy, and that's why we support the project. I'll also just say very briefly that my mother-in-law is a resident of San Rafael living in senior housing. And she would have loved to been in a downtown area as opposed to the kind of suburban, sort of much quieter area near Northgate. And I know multiple people who have tried to get their parents in senior housing in San Rafael and have to go, to Santa Rosa, Petaluma, because there is no availability. So wanted to speak out in favor of the project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mark McAlonen. I've been born and raised in Marin County. I've been standing on the corner of 4th and Shaver for 50 years in a row, every single day. I own Kane's Tire across the street. Not against a senior living coming into the area, but it's unbelievable that they get to pick any property anywhere they want at the top of the hill, San Rafael. And to me, that is a vibe killer. And you go to Petaluma, they're bringing in money. They have restaurants and businesses that are flowing. They have people to come in. They don't have hundreds of old people on this corner living here and milling around out in front with no property to mill on. Really, they talk about the In-N-Out garden. The mayor of Berkeley, there's no In-N-Out garden. No one's going to use that inside of that senior home in their little town hall. And the issue of the explanation of the traffic is that it was back and forth, and we meant this, we put that, but we took away this, we meant that. I really don't know what it is. We don't really know a whole lot. It's a whole bunch of we don't knows, and we need to have more information. The traffic on Shaver Street, standing there for 50 years on my phone and in my pocket, I have a traffic report that I paid for myself. It's not safe. And I could go hire another person, and he could go hire the same people that I hired, and you're going to get the same answer. So a built-in self-composed traffic report by who, for what, and is it real? What's real is cars jammed up on each other's cars, on traffic, parked cars on both sides of the street. They can't make it down the street with one car. They are up against the parked cars. They have the San Rafael Police is always called, the fire department, to pry people out of the passenger seats. And these cars off of each other. I've got a picture on my phone with a car jacked up on another car. That's the only one coming up the street. It wasn't like there was two of them. You can't get a PG&E truck up and down the street anytime hardly without backing up, going into one of the side avenues. You're not going to be able to get people out my door every single day. Is going to come 175 to 200 cars. The cars are coming out of that building at 8 o'clock in the morning. Are they all retired? Are they going anyplace? They can't get out because we can't get out. And if they have to back up because one of the people are coming back home, then who backs up? The 5 cars trying to get out? Do you back up on the Shaver Street? I've seen accidents. I see fights. 50 years of somebody comes and interviews me, I will show them the pictures. I'll give them traffic reports. I'll show them numerous pictures. I snap pictures every time there's an accident out there. Fights. I mean, they can't get by each other. The rearview mirrors are popping off of cars every day. You can't get rid of the sidewalk on the Kane's Tire side of the street. It's desperately needed for pedestrians to go up and down the street. So my biggest complaint is whatever the bogus traffic report is that says it's good, I can prove it's wrong by hundreds of pictures over lots of years. The entertainment on 4th Street is seeing people can make it up and down the street. So it doesn't fit. There's going to be accidents. You guys know about it. So when people get slaughtered over there.
Okay.
And in this picture, I have video. I have the police there, the cars packed up on each other.
Thank you.
Bicycle
Thank you.
crossing the street, skateboarders going down the side.
Your time has expired. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Darcy Curtis, and I live in Sun Valley, not too far from the West End. Pretty much live and breathe in the West End and do everything I do on a daily basis there. I am not at all against senior housing in San Rafael. I think it's a great idea. And I just spent the past 8 years taking care of my stepmother at Aldersley, and I understand the need for it here. However, we do not need a 7-story or 8-story building on 4th Street at E. There's absolutely nothing in the area that even compares to that in our neighborhood. So I'm not really sure who was thinking that this was a good idea. I know that Greystar has multiple designs in their portfolio for their senior housing. And why have they presented any other of their beautiful 4-story or 5-story buildings to you? Why did we get the 9-story on E Street and 4th? I'm not sure. There was a friend that wrote a letter to you about shadowing. Has anybody done any studies of that? There's nothing shown in the documents about shadowing. I have some friends that are just getting ready to put solar panels on their home, which is a block away. And I'm sure that this 8-story building will in fact shadow their solar panels and put them pretty much useless. So those are my questions to you as this group and this team as and what about all the 5 years that Santa Rafael's put together, the downtown 2040 plan? And you guys talk about, I'll read it right from the 2040 plan. It's tremendously important to Santa Rafael residents that growth is well managed and harmonious with community needs. New developments and other physical alterations must respect the character and scale of the city. Change and development should be accomplished in ways that enhance the blend with Santa Rafael's existing physical and social qualities. Development should respect the physical fabric of the city while improving its social fabric through new housing and economic opportunities. Really? Does this really meet any of that? I don't think so. I think that you guys have lost your way. Yeah, I'm not sure. It doesn't meet with any of the zoning requirements of the 2040 plan. It talks about on-street parking. You guys are eliminating parking for this project. It just sounds to me like this project is getting way too many, maybe too many density bonuses, and it's not complying to any of the zoning ordinances. And I would really like to hear that you say that you deny this project unless they come up with a 4-story building that would accommodate the beauty of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Hayden Ongaro. I'm in commercial real estate. I've spent almost 40 years of my career in San Rafael working with owners of properties, working with companies that want to locate in San Rafael. And I think it's known that housing is needed, and statistics show that senior housing is needed. I would argue that this is a very good site for housing. It allows seniors to avail themselves to great restaurants to help revitalize downtown San Rafael, which we've been working on, a number of us, for many years. I think the dining hall on 4th Street will show activity on 4th Street. It will give some vibrancy there where people see people having meals there. So I think this is a good project. I think it's appropriate for downtown. It has less traffic than the previous project, and we need housing, and I will hope you will support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Forgive my nerves. I've never done this before. My name is Jim Curtis. I've lived in San Rafael all of my 68 and a half years. I've seen this town change tremendously over the years. I remember when the courthouse burned to the ground and they built that new building there, multi-story building. It fits well in the area because of setbacks and green space. This project has none of that. No setbacks or anything. And describing it as a gateway is like putting El Capitan at the front of a little village, saying this is a gateway. I also am not against senior housing. I think it's appropriate and very, very needed. However, all of my circle of friends, I only know maybe 2 people that could afford to live there. And I want to get old in this town, and I want to live here when I'm really old, and I would not be able to afford to live there. As far as my comments, excuse me, there's numerous points to consider about, is it near transit? Yes, we have buses, but we have a major transit center down at 4th and Heatherton. This is quite a distance from there, difficult for seniors to get to. 170 bikes for seniors? I don't think so. It's better used as other space. There will be a tremendous amount of traffic, as the gentleman from Kane's Tire said. I have driven that street hundreds and hundreds of times. I noticed the traffic study did not include the impact at Shaver and 3rd or 2nd. The light timing down there is horrible. Cars back up at that intersection all the time, which directly affects the traffic up at 4th because people can't get through. I think it's really important that you listen to the public comments because there are a lot of people against this project. And it would be important to, I think, as the other woman said,
continue this project towards mid or late September when a larger amount of the community can make public comment. You could continue this until then. About the linkage fee, I'm curious if that is used to subsidize workers' housing. I'm not sure what the application on is, and I would like to hear an answer for that. Has the MMWD allocated sufficient water for this? Marin is subject to tremendous drought and will be again. So is there sufficient water capacity for this project? There's alternate locations that are highly more viable, such as PG&E lot. That would be a much more suitable location. So I would recommend you decline this particular project as is, put it in another location, or make it smaller, as the previous speaker mentioned. Thank you very much for hearing my question.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joe McCallum. I'm here on behalf of the Santa Fe Chamber of Commerce. I serve as a board member, and I'm a chair of the Economic Vitality Committee. I'm here to express our support for the change of use of the 1515 4th Street project to residential care facility. At the Chamber, we recognize that mixed-use projects are a priority for the city, but we also acknowledge the macroeconomic challenges that which residential developments face both locally and throughout the state. With this pivot in use, the 1515 4th Street project is poised to fill another need for the city and the county, which is senior housing. The creation of housing continues to be a top priority for the Chamber. As you know, the Chamber represents 500 Marin County employers and more, over 25 industry sectors. So for the collective benefit of our businesses, employers, and residents, we need to support efforts to add housing to our supply in a meaningful way. The redevelopment proposal at 1515 4th Street will replace an obsolete and underutilized commercial property and create a state licensed facility which will have independent assisted living and memory care units. This is a modified project, but it also is consistent with the previous project, which was formerly approved. These housing units, as others have said, will be filled with people that will be contributing to the commerce of the downtown. We have a number of new businesses which all could benefit from more people on the street. This is exactly what our local businesses need to thrive today. The Santa Fe Chamber encourages you to approve the change of use permit for 15 4th Street to advance our vision for downtown Santa Fe and to create more housing options for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Paige Cross, and I've been a resident of San Anselmo for over 18 years. And over the years, I've seen family, friends, and clients as well be displaced from their communities and have to move to Sonoma County or Sacramento and away from their families and their community support networks. I'm also a social worker and therapist, and I've managed social service programs in Marin County. And I feel like this is such an important issue for us right now, is to be able to accommodate more seniors as they age here and not have them displaced from their communities. Aging and Adult Services at Marin County has posted that 30% of Marin County is currently over the age of 60. And in 10 years, they anticipate that 40% of the county is going to be over age 60. And I think we really need to be very proactive in strategizing and building resources and housing to accommodate this aging population in Marin. And in addition to that, the Bay Area is also in a huge housing crisis as well. So housing across the board needs to be happening for all age groups. So I support this project, and I think that healthy aging is a very important part of people being able to stay well and healthy as they age. And by creating a facility like this where people can move into more urban settings and live together with other seniors, is a connection works wonders. And that's what helps people stay healthy as they age and keep a high quality of life and happiness for themselves and their peers by bringing them together.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jackie Waldberger, and I work for Belmont Village Senior Living in Albany. And my background is in geriatric nursing. I've dedicated my career to helping people in aging services. And what I wanted to present to you tonight essentially is the popularity of our Belmont Village in Albany, even though there are other providers locally. Our building has been full for over 5 years, while an assisted living, senior living provider down the street has not been able to maintain 50% occupancy. It is a desirable facility for the local population. Our residents are extremely brilliant. They are well educated. They are retired professionals. They have amazing families, and they're more demanding than just wanting to have the security of 24-hour nursing, physical therapy on site. We run a hybrid community. We provide a community built for life, but mainly we're a social model. We invest so much in our programs, lifelong learning programs, activities. Those spaces in the town hall are highly utilized. We have lectures from UC Berkeley in the facility all the time. We have world-renowned astrophysicists come in to explain the solar eclipse, things of that nature all the time. And so with that, I wanted to advocate that Belmont Village is a unique provider, and I assure you that I think it would be very popular in this area as well. I enjoy working there because I see people's lives change all the time. I love seeing their families. It's not just seniors hanging out. The place is built for friends and family. So we look forward to building in your community, and hopefully you will approve our project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nico Waldberger. I'm the building engineer at the Albany location, Belmont Village Senior Living. I just wanted to say that the building is an exceptional construction. When they had the fires in Santa Rosa, we had all the evacuees come and shelter in our place. So we took all the refugees in. They're meant to withstand everything, every disaster possible. They're built at such a high level beyond just any standard that is mandated by the state or the town. Having worked in emergency medical situation as an EMT in LA, I've been into every possible facility in LA. And every single time I've stepped into a Belmont, it was a complete head and shoulders above water. Different feel of community. The level of care, also the type of the model it is with independent, assisted, and dementia care. You have a vitality and a vibrancy of that community that filters out into the whole neighborhood. So I just want to say I hope you approve of the project, and it's a great community, great company. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Bridget Hogue, and I live literally right across the street from the old West America Bank. I'm all for something being built there. I think it's a great big empty spot. But I have watched all the drama on Shaver for many, many years, and it's a real thing. And so I think that needs to be looked into. I think it's lovely if there's another shorter building that could be built there because the senior population is growing. And as someone who is approaching that, I would never be able to afford a place like this. So the fact that that's not part of it is not a good thing. There's a lot of very wealthy people in Marin, as we all know, and there's a lot of people that aren't. And so I worry with all the places that are going up that they're going to serve a whole lot of people, but not everybody. And so this could be an opportunity. And I just have to add too that the idea that the building would be a gateway to our funky end of West San Rafael is a little off-putting because I think it would be nice to have something there, but not necessarily that. So anyway, I think something should be there, just a lot different, but thanks.
Thank you. And if there's nobody else who would like to comment, I'll close the public hearing and take the I'm sorry, you had your, no, you're not. Thank you. Appreciate your comments. I'd like to take the project back to the commission for discussion and deliberation. There were a couple of elements in the comments that I was hoping staff might address. One would be the relationship between bonuses and kitchens. Another, if you can address the 172 bikes, that seems to be of great concern. And if somebody could expound on the linkage fee and how it is used. And is there a CAT-X report available?
Thank you, Chair. I think the wisest thing I can do is to identify people, if you wouldn't mind opening the public hearing. I know that the full development team here is present and they can explain the base project and how that density bonus works for senior housing, basically to address that gentleman's questions. So I wanted to ask if we could open the hearing again for that specific question to be answered. First of all, I am very sorry that I did not respond back to Martha with the CEQA exhibit in your packet. It is online, it is on the packet. We do have, again, the transportation subconsultant who wrote both the original transportation study and the revised transportation study. They are going to be able to speak with a better voice to explain the transportation impacts. The other study that was added is noise. That study and both of those exhibits are in the packet. They are available to the public. I regret I did not respond to that email. I do believe it's in your comments. It was my intention, but I did not do that, and I apologize. I believe that the linkage fee explanation, we have Director Hinkle, we have the city attorney available, and we also have Alexis with our housing manager, all of which were involved in the creation of that fee, and I believe they'll be able to explain that better. I can say that the water is available to supply this project. I wanted to respond to that comment as well. To the bikes, which is the downtown precise plan doesn't offer relief. That is why the wording in the condition of approval, it doesn't talk about senior housing versus other forms of housing. One of the things on our work plan is to come back and it's a dynamic document. There are things we'd like to revise. That is why that condition of approval has to the satisfaction of the director, because I believe that there can be a conversation where we can revise that down to a point where it makes sense for the active seniors who like to have bike parking, but possibly not overtake the project with that many spaces. So we had to state the number, but I believe there's some flexibility, and the director will be able to address that. So to go back, if we could start with, if it's acceptable to the chair and the commission, to open the hearing and have the architect and their team talk about the base project and how the density bonus calculates. That is in the memo in the exhibit about the compliance, but I do not trust my voice to get through it. And I believe you have experts available for both that and the transportation study.
Okay, perfectly happy to open the public hearing.
Could I throw one more question in there in addition to yours?
Absolutely.
There was one that I noted. There was a question about whether or not this project has been reviewed by essentially the design review board as well. Yeah.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Yep.
Through the chair, the original project did go through the design review board. This project was found consistent with the original project, and the design review board is no longer constituted. So for those reasons, and I think the director might want to say something additional to that.
Well, I think to be clear about this project and its design, it was actually previously approved. The design review permit is still valid. The changes to the project are relatively minor. There's a loading dock door that changed out, a couple minor modifications, and really there's an analysis contained in the staff report really of why we still considered it like minor. It's in essence the same approved project, so that permit is still good. There's no changes to it. What's really changed this project is the use. The use is modified. We kind of gone through this residential to commercial, but that really what happens on the inside of the building is really what's been modified. But that the design review permit is still valid. Now, what is required though is we need to modify some of the conditions of approval if this moves forward. Some of those conditions spoke to the inclusionary housing, which was required of a housing project. Well, this is no longer that case. Now it's a commercial project, so it has a different fee applicability. So, but that's kind of where it stands.
Okay. Then unless the commissioners have anything else, so not questions, but well,
Hey, I don't think the commercial linkage fee issue was addressed.
We have Director Hinkle, the city attorney, and the housing manager available so that I don't make you suffer with my voice.
Hi, this is Alexis Peptanian, housing manager with the city of San Rafael. I can jump in and answer that question. Thank you for the question. So the commercial linkage fee, the nearly $2.6 million would be put into the city's affordable housing trust fund and used solely for the purpose of increasing and expanding the supply of affordable housing in the city of San Rafael.
okay. Thank you. And do we have somebody that can speak to the relationship between bonuses and kitchens?
Jeff and Christoph, I may need your help with some numbers, but I'll do my best on my own. So the way the levels of care are broken down in the project is we have 155 independent and assisted living units, which are very similar, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit, and then 28 secured memory care units. The way Belmont Village builds our buildings is we actually license the entire building. So even though we do have some distinction in how independent versus assisted living is marketed, they are all technically licensed units. So residents there could age in place. If somebody moves in that's independent, develops care needs, they don't need to be relocated to another unit within the building or another building within a campus. Those 155 independent living and assisted living units are equipped with some kitchen facilities, and they do meet the city's definition as well as the state's definition of living units. They generally include a sink, a refrigerator, a microwave, in some cases a small 2-burner cooktop. So even though our residents do, for the most part, take all 3 meals a day in a common dining room, 155 of the units are equipped with enough that they can prepare some meals for themselves there. So how the density bonus works is we have a base case and a bonus case. So the base case is the project that essentially complies with all local zoning regulations without any sort of waivers or without any bonus. So in our base case, we had 129 such independent living and assisted living units. So when you apply the 20% bonus to that, you get 25 point something. I think it's 25.8. The way that state density bonus law works is you round that up to the next whole number. So we end up with 26 bonus units on top of the 129 base case. That's how we arrive at the 155. Now, as part of the process, we did evaluate what would, how it would work if memory care units were included under that definition. And the math is essentially the same. So we had 183 in our bonus case. I don't know if somebody can help me with the math, but the grand total of the independent living and assisted living and memory care in the base case is 80% or 75%, whatever it is, of that 183 number. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
And I think there was a question about the breakdown between assisted versus independent.
Got it. So for us, like I said, because the entire building is licensed, there's not a whole lot of distinction between independent living and assisted living units. All of our independent living units are going to include a 2-burner cooktop. These days, a lot of our assisted living units do as well. For us, it is mostly about marketing. There are some residents that come in, particularly couples. Frequently, one resident or one spouse will have care needs, the other will not. We don't want to exclude the more able member of that marriage to not be able to be there. So there's not a huge distinction between independent living and assisted living. Independent living residents are not receiving care, and varying from community to community, oftentimes as part of their base rate, 2 meals a day will be included as opposed to 3. But if they want 3 meals a day, we can do that as well.
Okay. That answer the questions to this commissioner's satisfaction? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. And now I'll close the public hearing again and bring the project back to the commission for discussion and deliberation. Is there anybody who would like to lead off the discussion? Commissioner Rafatali?
I mean, as a person who had to organize assisted living for both of my parents recently. Well, actually, one parent recently and another parent 20 years ago. Correct that. And both my parents spent the last 2 years in their assisted living. I think this is it's a compassionate use of space. You know, that's the way I see it. I agree with the people who have said that we need more senior housing. So, I mean, I'm mostly in favor of it, just simply because of that. I won't go on and on about all the trials and tribulations that our family has experienced with regard to identifying high quality convalescent homes and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, they not all are high quality, needless to say. So it's good to hear that the sort of endorsements for this company. And I also know through direct experience that it's true that a larger senior community is a much more vibrant community for the seniors and also for the families. So I like that aspect of it. I think that it's as the person who owns a building with a lot of retail space down in 4th Street was sort of alluding to. I feel like actually, you know, against sort of in conflict possibly with conventional thinking, having less retail space on 4th Street may be a better thing in order to improve the demand for the retail space in 4th Street that is elsewhere. So yeah, I mean, I have a lot of notes here and I could go into a lot more detail, but I guess the last thing I'll mention is just from an economic perspective. And I mean, as an economist, I'm super interested in your opinion, John, and also others for sure. But I do like the idea of creating more space for seniors who would otherwise, basically as an option, as the city was talking about, who would otherwise possibly, you know, not necessarily be forced, but stay in their homes, stay in single family homes in San Rafael to make more room for families, for more people essentially to live in those single family homes as they were intended. So yeah, I'm in favor of the project. Thank you, John. You're welcome. Commissioner Sadi?
Yeah. Thank you again, Margaret and Mr. Hinkle and the applicant for preparing the presentation and answering our questions. Today, the question really isn't about the building itself, it's about the use. The building was reviewed and approved a while ago. I understand the concerns. You know, as a state, we've really pushed back on development. And the state has basically tied our hands, and we have no ability to say whether or not those bonuses are valid or not. That's not the question. So the height and the amount of units is dictated because we have not been able to solve the housing crisis on our own. I do think that the use will benefit the community. There is an affordability issue. There are a lot of seniors in single family homes right now that a lot of younger families or people with multiple people, rather than a couple or a single person, if those people move into this type of housing, then we can open up housing for people that actually can are working and adding to our schools and, contributing to our communities in a different way, and provide more density within our city. So I know that's really not the bigger question. The really question is about the use and whether it's was the last use or this use. If that's the question, then I agree with the changing use. I think housing units are housing units, and whether or not they're for seniors or for, you know, non-dictated users, those housing units will translate to other open housing units within our community. And it'd be great for people to be able to stay in San Rafael and not have to take up, an entire lot of a single family home. So that's what I got.
Thank you, Commissioner Sally.
Thank you. Yeah, I also agree. There's the aging population in Marin is astronomical. I mean, in between 2010 and 2021, I think there was a 43% growth of seniors over 65. Now, all those seniors are not necessarily looking for low income. I think as a city that we have an obligation to be able to provide all sorts of housing. And there are going to be people that don't want to move into low income properties, and this offers an alternative, and it gives up their homes for future families. So, and it's going to provide an audience for the small businesses on 4th Street. So I think as a city, we have an obligation to support these types of developments. So I'm also in favor of it.
Thank you, Commissioner Rodby. So I agree with almost everything that was said up here. And what I don't agree with, I'm uncertain about. I agree completely with Commissioner Prevatelli. I have had to place my mother in assisted living, memory care. She climbed up the ladder, but it was not at the same place. And because of her memory issues, her Alzheimer's, it was extremely disruptive when she had to move from place to place. And so one of the very appealing aspects of this is that you have the ladder. You can move into independent and then assisted when necessary, and then into memory care, hopefully. So you have all of that. And I think that's extremely valuable. This should and hopefully will. I mean, this is an aspect that I'm a little bit uncertain, but I'm inclined to believe that it will free up housing in San Rafael, certainly in Marin. But hopefully also in San Rafael. I'm a little bit concerned about the proportion of San Rafael's aging population that can afford it. But I think that this is a good use of the space. The last time this project came before us, I went I got on my soapbox a little bit about how we Californians, and Commissioner Soddy alluded to this, and we Californians have gotten ourselves into this pickle. We spent so many decades not approving housing, and to the point where we now have a serious housing issue. And the state has said, well, okay, if you're not going to do it locally, we're going to solve it statewide. And that has really tied our hands. So it's not necessarily the case that this would be the ideal size and structure of the building in that location. But this is where we are. So I too am in favor. Is there other comments from commissioners before?
I have one other comment, and obviously this is related to the project, but this is not a comment that is asking the applicant to do anything. But it seems like we need to get a handle on Shaver Street. Like there seems the city's. I wonder if we could include some sort of recommendation, sort of as a rider, but not as a condition precedent or anything to our approval of the conditional use permit, that the city council approve some sort of, or request some sort of like traffic review of Shaver Street.
I'm guessing that we could get universal agreement with that on the planning commission.
I don't know what the solution is.
Right.
I don't want to suggest one, but it seems like it needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I comment?
Oh,
I
please.
think that Public Works needs to step in and look at the whole housing element and figure out a plan to meet the needs on this of infrastructure with the amount of housing that we need to add by the state. So I think it's like a larger issue. So I think that, Shaver Street is definitely an example, like the exacerbated example, but I feel like that's like a larger issue as well. It's not just one street,
We start with Shaver.
First Street, Ground Zero.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I had intended to comment about the impact of this change in use on Shaver Street, right? This is much better.
Yeah.
This is much better for Shaver Street. I mean, the flow of cars in and out will be reduced. The flow will be smoothed over time and taken outside of peak hours, at least as far as my understanding goes. And so I view this with regard specifically to Shaver Street. I regard the change of use as being a significant improvement. Not, however, that I'm suggesting that we don't need to seriously think about Shaver Street and transportation related to, as was said, all of the housing projects that we're contemplating.
Oh, I was just a question for Mike and Margaret. How would we go about making that sort of recommendation logistically?
Through the chair, my recommendation, it really is the comprehensive analysis of the Public Works Department to actually look at multiple general plan policies related to transportation, traffic. I do believe we are looking at, we have multiple commissions, the ped and bike, that look at different pieces. Shaver has been evaluated by the city and looked over the intersection, even from the last discussion for the prior project. So in terms of safety impacts, there's none identified the trigger to this project. But your comments are well taken, and it's actually a viewpoint of our entire city, looking at implementation of multiple general policies that kind of push for pedestrian, multimodal transportation, traffic flow. So that is something that's already charged of the Department of Public Works and our Transportation Engineering Division. But to your point, I do think I can make a request that we look at Shaver, but not go into the depth of actually tying anything to this particular project.
Okay, thank you, Director Hinkle. Before we go further, I wanted to speak a little bit more to the economics that you alluded to, Commissioner Prevatelli. I'm uncertain what this change in use will do to the local economics. It's clear that there will be use by the residents of 4th Street in a way that maybe is better for 4th Street, and that it'll be throughout the day rather than perhaps breakfast in the morning and dinner and a show in the evening. But it's not clear to me that that strictly from a 4th Street perspective, this will be an improvement. It's not clear to me that it will reduce traffic and be a detriment. So, given that, I remain in favor of the project overall. I think that it's better for the city. If there's no more comment, can I get somebody to move that we accept the resolution that's before us? Or to make a motion with regard to the resolution before us?
I make a motion to approve Resolution 2403, modifying an environmental and design review permit and directing the staff to file a notice of exemption pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act for a state licensed residential care facility for the elderly.
Thank you, Commissioner Rodby. Do we have a second?
Through the chair, just for clarification, there was 3 staff presented amendments. I just want to make sure that that motion includes those 3 staff recommended amendments.
So I amend that to include the 3 staff changes to the original resolution.
Yeah, that was related to 3 conditions and clarifying the traffic mitigation fee, the timing of the payment of the affordable in lieu fee. And the third one was
related to the bike parking that has been a topic of discussion.
Yes. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Rodby. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Margaret, would you please take the roll?
Commissioner Prevatelli,
Yes.
Commissioner Rodby,
Yes.
Commissioner Sade,
Yes.
Chair Haveman.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Next, we'll move on to the director's report.
Good evening, commissioners. It is with great pleasure that I can report back that our planning division is fully staffed. So all vacant positions, this has been a real struggle for us for the past year is selection and maintaining of our positions. So we're actually fully staffed. So that depth of support for this community related to planning and community and economic development is now there. So with our recent hire of Jose Herrera Pereza, he's one of our principal planners. And he is coming in from the city of Oakland. So his depth and experience really is a much needed position for us, and excited to bring him on board. A little background for Jose, and we'll probably have him introduced at a future planning commission hearing or meeting. Actually, Jose, similar to me, started his career here in San Rafael as an intern. So actually, he was my intern. So so it's this full circle for both of us as we return back to the city of San Rafael with our planning background. So the other thing I'd like to report out is the council's approval of the second reading for the consolidation of the Design Review Board and Planning Commission. So those amendments and adjustments have been approved. Now there's a 30-day ordinance period. Currently, the council will be looking at selection of those additional seats with design professional backgrounds. So anticipate having that fully seated probably by council's 8:15 meeting. At that point, then we'll have the fully seated planning commission. We do anticipate supporting the planning commission with trainings. One of the first trainings that we'll bring forward will be the state housing laws. That'll be presented by our city attorney team to really kind of give the background support, because this is really one that does evolve, it does change. And these type of questions are not easy when we go into senior housing and what's a unit. So really give that opportunity for both the planning commission and public participants to come and hear that presentation and also understand and ask questions. So.
Terrific. Thank you, Director Hinkle. That's all good stuff.
If I may
Ask a question?
Uh,
Sorry. Oh, I just had a question about building. Are there any open positions in building? Are we like staffed there?
We are not fully staffed in building, so we are actually, the advantage of building, we actually can supplement with outside consulting services, and we have some multiple contracts. We did lose our deputy building official, so that one's been kind of a tough one to replace, but we actually have outside plan reviewers actually supporting the city. But we will be launching full recruitments. We actually have an active recruitment now for building inspector 1, 2. But then we also have another, as I said, the deputy position is still open and vacant. I do anticipate that being moved forward for recruitment shortly. We also have a code enforcement officer who's also in recruitment. So we are slowly coming up to full staff for the Community and Economic Development Department. And my hope is to continue to support the commission and the city in that way for processing these applications we get through our community.
Okay. Thank you very much. Do any plans? I'm sorry, Margaret.
I'm sorry. I just want to tag on to the director's report. In order to make sure that we are able to present the housing, state housing laws in August to the commission, could I have a show of hands of who can make the August 13th meeting?
I'm not sure.
I have to look at my calendar, but I want to say yes.
Okay.
'Cause I have them all.
And then the other meeting would be August 27th. Who can make the August 27th meeting?
I can make both.
You can make both?
I'm fine with both.
Okay.
Probably make the 27th, but if not, is it going to be recorded?
If you are not present, we probably will not have a quorum and we won't be able to hold the hearing.
You have to recall, we'll have new members seated potentially too, so depending on the timing. So
Yeah, so there's a lot of things in flux, so at least 3, possibly 4 for the 27th, and at least 3, or can everyone make the August 13th meeting? Okay, no, okay.
We also have Commissioner Marcato too is absent
Right.
today, but so I do anticipate.
Okay, so you will be getting an email from me just to check, and any new commissioners, and I'll reach out to Commissioner Mercado. I just want to make sure I know it's August and it's hard, so I just want to make sure we have a quorum possibility. I also want to bring your attention to an email you likely got from the city clerk recently about the opt-in for the stipend. She definitely wants to hear back from anyone on that topic that's interested in responding, so I just wanted to make sure you saw it. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Do any of the PC members of the Planning Commission have Any communication to share? All right. If there's nothing else, then this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
I expected there not to be any, like.
Recording stopped.